In the headlines, global leaders will flock to New York next week for the UN Assembly's general debate. Attention is being drawn to whether there will be any inter-Korean dialogue on the sidelines. The interim leader of Korea's main opposition party says she will not step down while parliamentary standing committees restart legislative activities. And the United States rolls up its sleeves to stop the spread of the Ebola epidemic in West Africa. These and more coming right up on Early Edition at 6. It's 6 p.m. on Wednesday, September 17th here in Korea. Welcome to Early Edition at 6, live from Seoul. I'm Hyun-kyung.
And I'm Daniel Choy. Thank you for joining us. The annual UN General Assembly kicked off on Tuesday, New York time, with a general debate session set to take place next week.
The heads of a state from around the world will flock to the city to discuss the world's most pressing issues, including North Korean human rights.
Our Hwang Sung-hee starts us off.
The United Nations General Assembly opened its 69th session at its New York headquarters on Tuesday. Addressing officials from the 193 member states, General Assembly President Sam Kutesa declared this year's theme of delivering on and implementing a transformative post-2015 development agenda. Next week, scores of heads of state and government will gather for the annual general debate, which will run from September 24th through October 1st. The lengthy list of topics includes poverty and hunger, persistent unemployment, violent armed conflicts, climate change, and more. Just in recent months, health systems in West Africa have been overwhelmed by an unprecedented Ebola outbreak, while new security challenges have emerged with acts of terrorism spreading fast in Iraq and Syria. U.S. President Barack Obama will host the UN Security Council summit next Wednesday to seek countermeasures against Islamic terror groups. A ministerial meeting on North Korea's human rights issue, presided by U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, will also take place. President Park Geun-hye will take to the podium on the first day of the general debate and seek support for her vision for reunification and peace building in East Asia. North Korean Foreign Minister Lee Soo-young will also speak on the UN stage on Saturday. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
So the prospect of there being inter-Korean dialogue on the sidelines of the assembly is drawing attention.
All the more so because President Park Geun-hye told Reuters that she would be glad to hold talks with Pyongyang. Choi Yoo-sun has more.
With North Korea still unresponsive about the South's proposed talks to improve ties, President Park Geun-hye, ahead of a trip to the UN General Assembly next week, left the door open to engaging with the North.
고위급 접촉을 제의한 데 대해서 좀 빨리 호응을 해서 대화를 하자 이렇게 말할 수 있는 기회가 있다면 좋겠습니다. 또 외교장관끼리 뭔가 그런 문제를 가지고 대화를 할 수 있는 기회가 있다면 그것도 바람직하다고 생각합니다.
Although officials from the two Koreas have no plans to meet on the sidelines at the UN, there's growing speculation that they may come in contact. North Korean Foreign Minister Lee Soo-young, who is attending the global summit this year, is Pyongyang's highest-ranking official to do so in 15 years. Starting her second year in office, President Park has been seeking ways to normalize relations with the northern neighbor and for the two Koreas to prepare for reunification.
분단의 고통을 해소하고 극복하고 또 평화 통일 준비를 위한 것이라면 저는 누구하고도 대화를 할 수 있다고 생각을 합니다. 이제 여기서 중요한 것은 어떤 대화를 위한 대화보다도 진정성과 실천 의지라고 생각합니다.
The Korean president also had a message for the Shinzo Abe administration regarding Tokyo's whitewashing of having coerced Korean women into wartime sexual enslavement.
이분들에게 사과하고 또 명예를 온전히 이렇게 회복할 수 있도록 일본 정치 지도자들이 용기 있는 결단을 내리기를 바라고 있습니다. 또 그렇게 해야 경색된 양국 관계도 좀 푸는 지름길이 되지 않겠는가 봅니다.
Attention now shifts to President Park's diplomacy during her stay at the UN and what message she will have for regional neighbors in her first UN General Assembly address. 최유선, Arirang News.
The U.S. government is working its diplomatic channels to safely release 3 of its citizens currently being held in North Korea. According to Voice of America, the U.S. State Department has made it known that they would be open to sending a high-level diplomat to the North as soon as possible. Washington is also reportedly willing to send someone other than Special Envoy Robert King, who Pyongyang has now rejected twice from entering North Korea. Meanwhile, the South Korean military arrested a U.S. citizen they say was trying to swim across a river into the north late Tuesday night. The man reportedly told officials that he wanted to meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. And it might have been a good thing that he didn't make it into the north, as a new UN report had shed a somber light on the health of the North Korean people. It says about 9.3 million North Koreans, or nearly 38% of the total population, didn't have enough to eat between 2012 and 2014. And while that figure represents a drop from previous years, it's far higher than global standard. More than 800 million people around the world don't get enough to eat, according to the report, which is down about 100 million from a decade ago. While it notes that hunger has been on a slow yet steady decline over the past couple of decades, the report says the figures are still unacceptably high.
The Korean public's patience with lawmakers is wearing thin, as they have failed to pass a single bill since early May. Although the standing committees have restarted legislative activities on the Assembly Speaker's order, nearly half the committee members are missing as the opposition continues to boycott over the so-called ferry bill. Our National Assembly correspondent Kim Hyun-kyung has more.
The National Assembly's standing committees are back at work. They began reviewing pending bills Wednesday and now have a timetable for plenary sessions, government audits, and hearings over the next 3 months. But there's less certainty about how much lawmakers of the New Politics Alliance for Democracy will be participating. They are boycotting all parliamentary proceedings over the unpassed Seoul ferry bill. But the ruling party says it may proceed with voting on some 91 draft bills that have already been reviewed by both parties, whether the opposition is present or not.
We have decided to proceed with legislative activities for the country and the people. We will continue our dialogue with the opposition party to normalize parliament.
But before that can happen, the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy will have to normalize its own party. Despite increasing pressure from members of her own party to step down, its interim chief Park Young-sun said Wednesday that she wasn't going anywhere and also had words for President Park Geun-hye.
It is unbelievable that President Park sent an ultimatum to the National Assembly calling for its normalization. This clearly shows that the presidential office has been meddling in the Seoul bill negotiations behind the scenes.
Park also said the main opposition would resume talks with the ruling party over the much contested bill that would set up an investigation into April's ferry disaster. With Park Young-sun staying on, Korea's main opposition party will now try to regain its political footing, come to an agreement with the ruling party on the matters of contention, and resume its legislative duties at the National Assembly. Kim Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
Face a one-day entry ban. 77.
Digging deeper, getting to the bottom of stories that impact your life. Talking with you on air and online. Connecting you with experts on the world's most pressing issues. News and current affairs at its best. With Laah Hyun-kyung and Daniel Choy.
Arirang News.
Arirang News.
Arirang News.
On Early Edition at 6.
The United States continues to help Iraq fight off threats from Islamic State militants. Washington has been limiting its military support to airstrikes, but a top U.S. military officer hints at the possibility of deploying ground troops. Here's our Park Ji-won with more.
Speaking in a Senate committee room on Tuesday, Chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff General Martin Dempsey emphasized that there could be a scenario in which Washington would consider deploying ground troops to defeat Islamic State militants.
If there are threats to the United States, then I, of course, would go back to the President and make a recommendation that may include the use of U.S. military ground forces.
In response to Dempsey's remarks, the White House, Pentagon, and the State Department all reaffirmed the president's position that they have no intention of sending ground troops into Iraq in a combat role. Instead, they said U.S. troops will remain there in advisory roles only. So far, President Obama has repeatedly stated that there will be no American boots on the ground and that the U.S. will focus on airstrikes while other global coalition countries from Arab states take care of ground-based missions. Regardless of the U.S. military's future role, Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel stressed the fight requires a concerted effort.
We're at war with ISIL as we are with al-Qaeda. But destroying ISIL will require more than military efforts alone. It will require political progress in the region and effective partners on the ground in Iraq and Syria.
The U.S. has launched expanded airstrikes in Iraq this week in support of Kurdish and Iraqi troops confronting militants on the ground as they try to push back the advance of the Islamic State. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
U.S. President Barack Obama, in the meantime, has called for taking more concerted global response to help West African nations fight the Ebola epidemic. He has committed thousands of military personnel to affected regions where more than 2,400 people have died so far. Connie Kim reports.
The United States is ready to take a leadership role in the fight against the deadliest ever Ebola outbreak in West Africa. Speaking at a briefing at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on Tuesday, President Barack Obama unveiled plans to send more U.S. military personnel, train health workers, and build medical facilities. The announcement includes building 17 healthcare facilities equipped with 100 beds each, training up to 500 healthcare workers a week, and setting up a joint command post headquartered in Liberia's capital, Monrovia. The 3,000 troops that'll be deployed will provide training and engineering support to try and contain the epidemic that appears to be spiraling out of control. Obama also called on Congress to approve the additional financial support his administration requested. As of now, Washington has provided more than $100 million and the Pentagon is seeking to funnel an additional $500 million to deal with the crisis. Calling the outbreak a global security threat, Obama also requested a global response. He said proper steps taken in cooperation with other nations could save lives, but would have to come soon. With the number of Ebola-infected patients increasing at a rapid pace, the UN's fund request to contain the virus has jumped tenfold to $1 billion. On Thursday, the United Nations will announce the outline of its international action plan. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
There's one fundamental question that we should be asking ourselves on a regular basis, if not every day, but we often fail to do so. So a global research firm asked people worldwide instead. Our Kim Ji-yeon tells us what that question is and also what the firm found out.
How happy are you? It's a question that may not have a simple answer, considering all the variables. But it's precisely the question that Gallup and Healthways, a U.S.-based health tracker, asked 130,000 people from 135 countries for their global well-being index. It found that the vast majority of people living in Korea are not all that happy. Less than 1 out of 5 Korean respondents saw that they were well off in most aspects of their lives. When asked how far along they were in achieving their long-time life goals, most respondents from Korea answered that they were struggling. Most also felt they were struggling with maintaining the relationships in their life. However, more than 35% said that they were thriving in terms of their financial well-being. In the remaining categories, such as sense of community and health, a majority of Korean respondents said that they were struggling as well. All in all, Korea came in 75th overall in the survey, well below neighboring countries like Taiwan and Japan, as well as other Asian countries such as the Philippines, Thailand, and India. Panama topped the list with more than 60% of respondents saying that they were thriving in more than 3 elements. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories. Following in Europe's footsteps, China is reportedly pursuing a quantitative easing policy to boost its economy in line with many stimulus measures announced earlier this year. Citing a Chinese official familiar with the matter, Bloomberg reports that the People's Bank of China is to inject around 500 billion Chinese yuan, or more than $81 billion of capital over a 3-month period. This comes amid signs of an economic slowdown in China. Industrial output grew merely 6.9% in August, the lowest China has seen since the 2008 global financial crisis. Korea's 4 largest companies are putting more distance between them and the competition. Corporate research firm CEO Score said the total amount of value added by Samsung, Hyundai, LG, and SK was $135.5 billion last year, and that's up nearly 4%. But the amount of value created by the rest of the firms in the top 500 went the other direction, dropping 13.5%. Korea's top 4 conglomerates accounted for about 10% of gross domestic product in 2013, with Samsung topping the list at nearly 5%.
In sports, the anticipation amounts as Asia's largest sporting event will kick off in Korea's Incheon this Friday. Thousands of athletes from the region will be aiming for gold at the 17th Asian Games. Our Song Ji-sun checks in on the athletes as well as the plans for opening night.
Athletes from all over Asia are descending upon Incheon as the clock ticks toward the opening ceremony of the 17th Asian Games on Friday. South Korea's biggest team ever at over 8,000 athletes and officials have already begun unpacking in Incheon, while North Korea's main ASEA delegation arrived on Tuesday. The North delegation will hold a flag-raising ceremony at the Athletes Village at 10 a.m. on Thursday, while the South Korean athletes will hold their own at 4 p.m. As for today's action, South Korea's men's and women's football squads will hold their second preliminaries at 8 p.m. against Saudi Arabia and India, respectively. In the meantime, the South baseball team, which is defending its title from Gwangju 2010, began training for their first game against Thailand on Monday evening. The Korean Baseball Organization is taking a 2-week break to allow for its players to compete in the Asian Games. KBO action will pick back up at the start of next month with the home stretch for the race toward the playoffs. South Korean fencer Nam Hyun-hee and archer Oh Jin-hyuk will be representing the 13,000 participants on the opening night of the Asian Games 2014. But we still don't know who will be lighting the Asian Games torch at the opening ceremony. The flame has been traveling around Korea for a month now and will be passed around the host city of Incheon on Wednesday before finding a new home at the main stadium on Friday. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
There are many signs that autumn is here. One of them is when Korea's royal palaces start leaving their doors open for visitors well into the night. One of the palaces that has started extending its visiting hours to 10 p.m. is Changgyeong Palace. Our Kim Min-ji takes us there.
Soft ambient lighting sweeps over Changgyeong Palace. Friends and families take in the beauty of the royal palace. Lovers follow the trails once used by kings and queens, while others simply capture the moment on camera.
It's great. The light really brings it out. It brings out the architecture in the dark.
It's my first visit at night. I'm happy that I get to show such beautiful places to my boyfriend.
Cheongsa-chorong, or traditional Korean lanterns, are placed around the palace grounds, amplifying the beauty of the royal structures. Visitors sit around the palace, sharing their stories as the night deepens.
The palace is extremely beautiful, and we are enjoying the quiet and gentle atmosphere here.
Although tickets for the night tours are no longer available online, foreigners and the elderly can buy tickets on site for 1,000 won, or about $1. Changgyeong Palace will remain open until 10 p.m. through Sunday, September 28th. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
We just had a glimpse of it in the report as well, but the selfie craze has been both viral and global for a while now, and the way in which people take selfies continues to evolve, and this is what people are using as of late now.
You know, I'm all for selfies as long as it's about, I guess, promoting oneself or making lasting memories, freezing those moments. But if it crosses the line of I guess, obsession and vanity, I must warn people not to cross that line. Well, Shin Se-min has more on this story.
First, let me take a selfie.
Immortalizing moments with our faces in them. Self-portrait photographs, better known today as selfies, know no geographical, gender, or age boundaries. The selfie craze has gone global in recent years.
Taking selfies are more convenient than having to ask other people. Also, I know which angles and poses best compliment me.
And riding the trend is his latest gadget, the so-called selfie stick, which gives photo takers an extra inch of arm length to make it easier to take the perfect selfie.
Sales of this meter-long pole this summer in Korea, owing in part to the surge of single vacationers, prove its popularity.
In the past month, we have seen a 20-fold increase in selfie stick sales, and the demand continues to rise.
So is this just an advanced way of taking selfies and indulging yourself in narcissistic moments? Some say it is. But it could be more than that in Korea. Koreans living in one of the world's most wired countries that's small enough to stay hyper-connected may feel the need to show the better sides of their faces and know which filter flatters them the most.
The selfies that are being taken by the majority of Koreans are hardly an act of narcissism. A small study of selfie takers shows that they are partly influenced by their own insecurities about their appearance. So they are taking selfies in a way they think is a good representation of them.
Love them or hate them, these selfie sticks are here to prove that the people want to be noticed and recognized. Until the day we find some other means to present ourselves, we've got our smartphone cameras and these sticks. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Not the most favorable condition outside right now for outdoor selfies. It was a gloomy day outside today.
Well, some parts of the nation saw rain showers, and let's turn to our Michelle Park for more details. Michelle.
Good evening, guys, and it has indeed been a cloudy day, and the satellite maps gives us a bigger picture of the peninsula. With more clouds moving in, rain is expected to fall in some regions in Gangwon-do and Gyeongsang-namdo provinces, as well as over in Jeju Island until tomorrow morning. Now, because of the cloud cover and precipitation, temperatures won't be rising as high. However, tomorrow looks to be a bit less cloudier, and in some regions, which includes Seoul, where highs will be rising back into the high 20s. Now, Jeju Island won't be as lucky. Continuous rain is in the forecast there and in the east and south coastal regions. And other parts of the country can expect mild weather and throughout the rest of the week until Sunday, when there is chances of some showers. Now going over to our temperature readings. Seoul will start off the Thursday morning at 16 before reaching up to 28 degrees in the afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Daegu and Busan will both see the highs of 24 degrees. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju Island tops over to 23, while Dokdo drops down to 22, while Mankungang is slightly higher at 24 degrees. Now that's all for Korea. Now here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
You know, on the topic of narcissism or vanity, I don't think we are, because if you look at the Incheon Asian Games, the sports we excel in, fencing, pistol, archery, we hide our faces behind certain objects. So there's my point. Well, that's all the time we have for you at this hour. Thank you for staying with us. To our viewers in different time zones, have a wonderful day. This has been Daniel Choy.
And I'm Hyun-kyung. To our viewers in Korea, have a great rest of the evening. See you tomorrow.